Look at your hands for a moment. No claws. Feel your teeth. No elongated, razor-sharp fangs designed to pierce flesh or snap bone. If you were dropped into the middle of the African savanna tonight with nothing but the clothes on your back, you wouldn't last 48 hours. You cannot outrun a cheetah, you cannot out-wrestle a leopard, and your night vision is laughably bad compared to a hyena's. For millions of years, our ancestors lived side by side with the most efficient, terrifying killing machines this planet has ever produced. Monsters that weighed 500 pounds, ran 40 miles an hour, and could crush a primate's skull with a single, casual bite. And yet, against every biological law of the wild, we didn't just survive, we won. How did a slow, weak, hairless ape manage to avoid becoming an evolutionary footnote? The answer isn't that we suddenly grew massive brains and built complex weapons overnight. The reality of how ancient humans survived predators is much deeper, stranger, and far more calculated than that. It required a complete restructuring of human biology, a total exploitation of the clock, and a psychological weapon that no other animal on Earth could comprehend. For a very long time, there was a popular myth in science called the killer ape hypothesis. It argued that early humans survived because we were naturally violent, aggressive predators from the very beginning, using our early intelligence to dominate the landscape through sheer brutality. But in the late 20th century, anthropologists started looking closer at the actual fossil record, and they found something deeply humbling. We weren't the apex hunters of the ancient world. We were the default prey. Consider the famous fossil of the Tong child, an early human ancestor belonging to the species Australopithecus africanus, who lived about 2.5 million years ago. For decades after its discovery, scientists wondered what had killed this helpless, childlike hominid. The breakthrough came when researchers noticed tiny, distinct punctures and fractures on the inside of the skull's eye sockets. When they compared these marks to modern forensic data from the animal kingdom, the match was perfect. They weren't caused by a club or a large cat. They were the exact marks left by the talons of a large eagle when it pierces the brain of a monkey from above. Our ancestors weren't just being hunted by lions and leopards on the ground. They were being scooped up by giant birds of prey from the sky. In another cave system in South Africa, scientists found a collection of hominid bones that showed a strange repeating pattern of twin puncture wounds in the skulls. The spacing of the holes matched perfectly with the lower canine teeth of Dinofelis, a prehistoric, heavily built false saber-toothed cat that specialized in hunting primates. The evidence was undeniable. For the vast majority of our evolutionary history, humans were an ecological snack food. We were slow, terrestrial, and packed with nutrients, making us the ideal target for any predator looking for an easy meal. So how did we flip the script? The first major breakthrough wasn't the invention of a sharp steel blade or a complex trap. It was a rock. But the true evolutionary magic wasn't the rock itself. It was the specific way our bodies evolved to throw it. If you look at a chimpanzee, our closest living relative, they are incredibly strong, easily possess several times the upper body strength of an average human. But if a chimpanzee tries to throw a stone or a stick at you, the motion is clumsy, weak, and highly inaccurate. Their shoulders are positioned high up near their ears, an anatomical design perfectly suited for pulling their body weight up into the safety of the trees. Somewhere around 2 million years ago, with the appearance of Homo erectus, our anatomy underwent a radical transformation. Our shoulders dropped lower on the torso, our collarbones widened, and our waists became highly flexible and independent of our hips. This exact structural redesign allowed humans to do something no other animal on Earth can: store elastic energy in our tendons and shoulder muscles, acting exactly like a mechanical catapult. Humans are uniquely evolved to throw projectiles with blistering speed and lethal accuracy. To a modern person, throwing a baseball or a stone seems like a simple game. To a prehistoric predator, it was a terrifying, long-range defensive grid. A lion or a large cat expects its prey to run, freeze, or kick defensively up close. It does not expect to have its jaw shattered or its ribs broken by a heavy, sharp missile flying through the air from 40 feet away. By mastering the art of throwing, ancient humans created a bubble of safety around themselves. They could inflict severe disabling pain on a predator without ever getting within reach of its claws. A wounded predator in the wild is a dead predator because an injury means it can no longer hunt. Once large carnivores realized that approaching a human meant being bombarded by a hail of high-velocity stones, they began to recalculate the risk of hunting us. The second major survival strategy was a complete exploitation of the daily clock. Most of the great African predators are either nocturnal, hunting in the pitch black of night, or crepuscular, hunting in the cool, dim hours of dawn and dusk. During the blazing, suffocating heat of the midday sun, a lion, leopard, or hyena is practically useless. Their massive, heavy muscles produce immense internal heat when they exert themselves, and because they can only cool down by panting, running hard at noon can literally cook their brains from the inside out. They're forced to spend the middle of the day resting in the deepest shade they can find, barely moving. Humans developed a bizarre, unique biological cheat code to exploit this vulnerability. We lost our thick body fur, and we developed an incredibly advanced network of eccrine sweat glands distributed across every square inch of our skin. We became the ultimate evaporative cooling systems of the animal kingdom. This meant that while the apex predators were pinned down by the heat, panting heavily and completely incapacitated, ancient humans owned the midday. Our ancestors could forage, travel, scavenge meat from abandoned kills, and move safely across the open landscape during the hottest hours of the day without any fear of being chased down. We survived the predators by simply working the shift that they biologically could not handle. But our ultimate defense mechanism was not physical, anatomical, or chronological. It was social. A single human on the open savanna is an easy, vulnerable meal. 2 humans are a bit more trouble, but a group of 15 or 20 humans moving in unison, shouting, banging sticks, and throwing stones is a psychological nightmare for a wild animal. Predators are deeply risk-averse creatures. They do not want a fair fight. They want a guaranteed, isolated target that will not fight back. Ancient humans understood this predator psychology implicitly. We developed a hyper-cooperative social structure where an attack on one individual was treated as an attack on the entire community. If a leopard tried to snatch a vulnerable child, it didn't just have to deal with a frantic mother. It had to face an entire tribe rushing forward in a coordinated wall of deafening noise, aggressive posturing, and flying rocks. Predators learned through generation after generation of traumatic experiences that attacking a human group carried an unacceptably high risk of injury or death. We became the only prey species on the planet that actively hunted the things that tried to hunt us, enforcing a brutal boundary line that taught predators to keep their distance. This intense, millions of years long predator pressure didn't just change our bodies, it hardwired our brains in ways that we still experience every single day. Have you ever walked through a dark house at night and felt a sudden, irrational spike of adrenaline because a shadow looked vaguely like a crouching figure or a pair of eyes? In evolutionary psychology, that is known as hyperactive agency detection, and it is a direct inheritance from your ancient ancestors. In the prehistoric world, if you heard a faint rustle in the bushes and assumed it was just the wind, but it turned out to be a hidden saber-toothed cat, you died, and your genes were eliminated from the pool. If you assumed it was a saber-toothed cat, but it turned out to be just the wind, you lived to see tomorrow. Evolution heavily favored the paranoid, the vigilant, and the hyper-aware. We became master decoders of our environment, learning to read the frantic warning cries of birds and monkeys in the canopy, sensing the subtle shifts in the behavior of herd animals, and interpreting the exact meaning of a snapped twig or a sudden silence in the brush. And then, about 1 million years ago, humans mastered fire, and the entire balance of power shifted forever. Fire did something revolutionary. It extended our daytime dominance into the terrifying domain of the night. A campfire creates a physical, glowing barrier that no wild animal dares to cross. The flickering light and the smell of smoke acted as an invisible shield, blinding the superior night vision of predators and leaving them exposed if they approached the perimeter. Behind that wall of light, for the first time in history, humans could drop their guard, sleep deeply, and recuperate without the constant, paralyzing fear of being dragged into the dark. Eventually, we took this defense strategy to its absolute logical extreme. We took one of our most ancient, dangerous, and efficient competitors, the wolf, And instead of waging a war of eradication against it, we entered into a bizarre, brilliant partnership. We co-evolved with them, trading our leftover food and fire-warmed camps for their incredible sense of smell, their acute hearing, and their natural pack defense instincts. We turned our enemy into our alarm system and our protector, creating a symbiotic bond that effectively insulated human settlements from the dangers of the wild. When you look back at the grand, sweeping epic of human evolution, it is easy to view our survival as something inevitable, as if we were always destined to conquer the natural world and sit at the top of the food chain. But the reality is far more beautiful, fragile, and compelling. We survived because we were weak, not because we were strong. Our extreme physical limitations forced us to rely on things that could never be grown as claws, armor, or fangs. We had to rely on our ability to look at a simple stone and see a high-velocity weapon. We had to rely on our ability to read the tracks in the dirt, the warnings in the sky, and the heat of the noon sun. Most importantly of all, we had to rely entirely on each other. We survived the ancient monsters of the night because we realized early on that the only thing more dangerous than a lone apex predator was a group of vulnerable humans who refused to stand alone.